on, DJ Nation? Kenny Kim here, bringing you another Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast this week for the Canadian Open. As usual, I am here with everybody's favorite Canadian, Tyler Tamboline. Tyler, what is up, my friend? Are you ready for your home event?
I can't wait, Kenny. It's always exciting. Excited for this one, excited for next one, for the US Open. But it's funny, the geography always does come up. I mentioned this on another show today I was recording, and it's funny. People say, you know, are you going to the event? I get it, because it's the only event in Canada every year. So yes, I'm excited about it. I'm not going to make it to this one this year, but it also is funny that it's like asking, like last week, somebody in Texas, are they going to be at the Memorial this week in Ohio? Because it's this, that's like the distance between the two. So going to be a fun event either way. Always funny to talk about that. But before we get into it, I want to remind everyone very quickly, this show is brought to you and presented by prizepicks.com. Head on over to prizepicks.com, use promo code MMN, get yourself a 100% deposit bonus up to your first $100. Props, picks, plays, all different ways. Lots of stuff going on this week over at prizepicks.com. Check it out. Promo code MMN. Kenny, crazy little event we had. I told you last week, I love the Memorial, one of my favorite events outside of the majors. And we got a good one down the stretch. Viktor Hovland had been trending. The whole 16 fiasco at PGA Championship was one hole, one spot in the bunker, one shot, and then sort of led to a big mess. But he played really well otherwise and elsewhere leading up. And of course, goes and gets the job done yesterday, gets to shake Jack's hand. Poor Denny. But man, what a good event this was, I thought, right down the stretch. What do you think of the Memorial?
Yeah, pretty big event, pretty big week in golf in general. I mean, with Rose Zhang going out there, winning her first event as a pro. We might talk about that later. And then, of course, Viktor sort of actually getting that sort of like that big win that he hasn't had yet. We all knew he had it in him, and so it was nice. I hit the Hovland bet, second outright in the last 3 weeks, going along with Koepka at the PGA Championship. So nice little run going right now. I think the last time I hit 2 of 3 winners, I ended up hitting 7 of 12 total. That was during the fall of 2019. And I think some of it might have been from the FedEx Cup playoffs earlier. So I'm hoping that this is some type of recreation of that nice little run that I had back then prior to COVID. The event itself, I mean, the way he won was really, really impressive because, I mean, he was down. I think he bogeyed the last 2 holes on the front 9 to get the 4. He was like 3 strokes back, or something like it. I wasn't able to watch all of it. I got back home. I went on a golf trip over to Wisp Resort in the border of Maryland and Pennsylvania this past week. Beautiful course, Lodestone, right on the mountains up there. But I was on my way back home while this tournament was going on. And I made it back home for like the last 5 or 6 holes of the leaders. And what we saw with Hovland was that little duff. He made those 2 birdies to get back into it on 10 and 11. Okay, and I think he was like 2 back at that point in time. After bogeying, I think 8 and 9. And then he hits that duff on 12, that little chip. He's been chipping, average to slightly above average all week. And, that's what we need from Viktor if he's going to win, because his ball striking is so elite. Not as elite as Scottie Scheffler, but still elite. And to do what he did, to come back from that and go 2 under with no more bogeys the rest of the way, and birdieing 17 and being 2 under on 16, 17, 18. 16, 17, and 18 were playing almost 4 strokes over par combined for the week. Tough stretch at the end. He made that birdie on 17, and Denny, he did his thing on the front 9, got those 3 birdies, was coasting, and then hit the back 9. And it was, I mean, he was struggling a little bit. You could see it from tee to green, but his putter saved him, making 8-foot par putts, 13-foot par putts, just from all over the place. But you just sort of had the idea that this wasn't going to last. To do that for 9 straight holes, missing fairways, missing greens, chipping it average to below average, leaving himself more than 10 feet on par putts, and then draining all those putts, that's not going to last, and it didn't. On 18, he pulled that drive, almost went into the water. Had the layup, not a great wedge at all. missed the putt, and it's still about 5 feet left for bogey. I thought, well, maybe I can get this ticket without even going to a playoff. But that did not happen. He made his bogey putt, and then the feeling you had in the playoff was that Hovland was going to win. I mean, you just didn't, he hit it straight down the pipe, and then of course Denny had to lay it up again, and or maybe I'm trying to remember. Maybe he did have to lay it up. Either way, he missed a 12-footer for par that probably would have put a little bit more pressure on Hovland. I'm trying to remember this correctly. It was a long weekend. A lot of brain cells were killed this past weekend. So if I'm not repeating exactly what happened yesterday, please forgive me. But and then the putt that Hovland had, he was fist pumping it right when it got off the blade, and I thought it was going to miss right. It sort of lipped in at the end. Got the W. We all knew it was coming. Good for Hovland. I mean, I really like the 22-1 I got at the U.S. Open now, and the 25-1 I got at the Open Championship. I don't think you're going to see those numbers anymore. Big fan of me getting those numbers prior. I bet that right at the PGA Championship. You just see it coming for him. And for him to do it at Jack's event, a big-time event, huge stepping stone in his career, you could see basically blast off for Hovland. Now, I think, at some point in time, a major's coming, more wins are coming. Could he get to a Rahm and Scheffler level where he's the number one player in the world at some point in time in his career? I don't think that's out of the question either. He's 5th right now. Yeah, great event. GPPs saved me this week, in DFS. I had Scheffler, Hovland, Rory, Scheffler, Hovland, Fowler, and Siwoo were 4 of my top 5 highest owned. So really good return on investment in GPPs. I had a lineup that was 3rd go in the $5 going into Sunday. That fell outside the top 2,500, but I had another lineup come in, finish 75th in the $5. Not bad with 78,000 entries. I'm in the 0.001 percentile. So it was nice. It was good getting it. It was weird. I switched it up this week where I made my lineups like Monday. I was like, I'm just going to make it so I don't hear nothing. I looked at the weather. If the weather was going to change, I would have changed it, but I didn't see anything in the weather. So I made all my lineups Monday night, after the pod, not trying to get anyone else's info in my head and get too scatterbrained, and it paid off. The big mistake was Tom Kim. He was in my top 5 highest owned as well. With him missing the cut, if he made the cut, it could have been a huge week. Granted, cash not great. I think I went 3 or 4 in cash. So it wasn't horrible, but the 2 guys that I had in that I added on top that weren't in my cash game cornerstones missed the cut. Another thing that pissed me off was, of course, Denny was my bet of the week last week. So I really was rooting against him, even though Denny is from the DC metropolitan area. He's from a Maryland suburb, but I can hate him because he went to UVA and I'm a Hokie. So there you go. Tambo, what'd you think about the event? Anybody else you want to talk about?
You got to follow it up. Yeah, when you bet him, you got to go back to him. But yeah, it was a good run for him. I thought, a couple things. One, the Victor stuff. Man, just watching the guy sit there to get ready for the playoff, super nonchalant, just no care in the world. That mindset is exactly what you need, and why, again, he'll think he'll be more than live again. You guys were already on him. A lot of people were already on him for the upcoming majors. U.S. Open, though, while he's playing this good, it's he does or he doesn't, but it's not affecting him. If he makes a bad shot, even back at the PGA Championship, it didn't seem to matter. And when he realized he's going to the playoff, he said, all right, cool, let's go to work. He just pops back up with his caddy right back, and that's all you can do. But at the same time, it's just something about when you're watching that kind of the eye test that you put on it. He wasn't phased. He knew, it almost looked like he just knew he was winning, and that was the free chance he got. You let me back in the door, and it's going to happen this way. You never know if that's how it's going to play out, but certainly how it seemed. Good to see him get the job done there. The other thing, though, Kenny, was Sunday. Man, there's no one that really choked it away. I wanted to bring this up with you because I know the conversation, Rory's back up there again and all the other factors, but it was tight. We knew going into Sunday, it was anybody's game, but man, it felt like if nobody chokes it away, because you can't really call it that in that situation. Some say there's not even such a thing as a choker. It's just golf. It's tough to win. You can't really do it. But either way, a lot of people blew it on Sunday that had chances. Like Ricky.
Well, not just Sunday either. I mean, Hideki was at 10 under at one point.
I just care about Sunday. On the Sunday bunched up leaderboard going in, forget it. It all ties together. But yeah, Hideki and Scheffler would go in the class you're talking about. Scheffler all weekend. Talk about that in a second. But Hideki and Scheffler, sure, from the whole thing. But on Sunday, Spieth finished 4 under, 3 off the lead in the play. Like, he played like horrible. I don't even know what he did on Sunday, and he's still up the board. Siwoo was nowhere to be found until he was and crept his way back up to a nice little 4th place finish. Scheffler will go, like I said, we can talk in a second about him and Rory specifically. Rory definitely, people say he blew it, or he choked. He blew it away. I mean, it was another good chance for a guy like Rory, but man, no wedges to be found. I'm not sure what was up with that. It was horrendous on the back 9, especially. And then other guys up there, just like, randomly, Fitzpatrick, Scott, Shank, Putnam, all those guys just sort of showing up, whatever. Wyndham Clark, another guy was in the mix and all of a sudden fell down the board. Hatton, some of these guys, Henley, Rahm, no putter on Saturday, nothing on Sunday, just, really lackluster. But I guess Scheffler and Rory, to do a quick takeaway, because Rory, we're going to talk about again for this week. Scheffler, we won't see again until the major next week. I already said it, man. Like, you can just see the situation. Scheffler was the disparity in this ball striking versus the putter. I can almost feel it happening already. How can you not play Scheffler at the U.S. Open? Perfect setup, blah, blah, blah. He's going to find the putter, and then the driver or something else is going to go away on him randomly, and it's just going to be the whole world's on this guy. But we'll see if that happens. But give me your takeaways on those two, because that's the only other two really care to talk about. Scheffler with that ball striking versus the putter, and Rory lost wedges, if you will, down the stretch in what this week, when we're going to talk about it, segue in, sounds like a wedge fest. Drive it out there, keep it clean. Even if it's not in the rough, you're still coming in from that type of distance. So talk to me about those two before we get into this week.
I mean, Scheffler's performance was historic. I think the second most strokes gained tee to green in recorded history this past week. I think he gained almost 21 strokes tee to green, which is that's fucking insane. That's insanity. And then to lose 9 strokes putting. I mean, he missed like a 36-inch putt, like a 28-inch putt on the back 9 on Sunday. If he makes that putt, he's in a playoff.
There's a lot more than that too. That's just the most obvious one for sure.
Yeah, now that's the most obvious one. But I mean, there's plenty more that he missed inside 5 feet. But that one was the one on the back 9 where it was literally 26 inches, 28 inches, and he missed it. Here's the thing, most of the time when someone's going through something like this where their putting is being this bad, where it's such a drastic change. I mean, just in the last 3 months or something like that, he's gone from 99th in strokes gained putting for the season to 145th or somewhere around there. In 3 months, 4 months. That's it. That's hard to do. To drop that many spots. And the thing is, golf is such a mental game that if one part of your game is struggling that bad, it usually creeps into other parts of your game. We saw it with Spieth when he lost his putter for those years. The rest of his game sort of fell apart as well. A little bit, maybe. And so for him to do what he does and compartmentalize his shot making ability with his putting is really an impressive feat to do as well as he's doing. I mean, it's insane. Really, the tee to green that he's been having in the last 3 or 4 months, to only have 2 victories this year seems like he's fucking up.
Big time.
You know what I'm saying? It seems like he's fucking up. He should have had 7 victories. It's insane how close he is to becoming the most dominating player in the game. It's almost there. If he can putt like he did last spring and early in the summer, where he was making every par save from 5 to 15 feet that you can imagine. If he had a tough out, left it 12 feet for par in an important situation, you knew Scotty was going to make this. And that was, a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago. And now to see where he's at, it's mental, but it's really impressive that he's still able to finish where he's finishing. And to be as good tee to green when everyone and their mother knows how much he is struggling with the putter. And for that not to creep in to his mind on all the other shots, is super impressive. You would expect more from him. It could happen. You know, at any time, I think he could go off and win 3 in a row. Would you be shocked with that?
Well, no, he
No.
should have already. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
If you give this one, for sure. The Charles Schwab, for sure. He just did it there. And what was that? 1 stroke or something off of that one. And it all started, if you remember, it started at the match play. He had the
against Cam Young, right?
No, Sam Burns goes off to the side and has his head in his hands. He can't. He's about to lose this. And Scotty misses. Sam Burns is like, oh shit, he gets it back. I mean, it's match play, but that's the one you have to make. There is no gimme. You don't lose for sure. He has to go put that in. He doesn't. And then Sam Burns not only goes on to win that match, but then goes on to the finals to win it all. And since then, that one's the furthest from saying it's a win. He would have probably been, he should have been in the finals, you would think. And then whatever happens in the finals, but the Charles Schwab and now this, 2 for sure right here. But remind me next week, to everything I said earlier is kind of the joke narrative. The flip case is, I think we should bet Scotty first round leader. And I think we should bet Scotty wire to wire. And what if it does just click? Because really, I don't think he should change shit. You said it best. When you start going, I'm not an expert, but I'm saying we've seen it long enough. We've watched the game, been involved with it plenty. When guys start switching shit up, it affects other parts. He's doing nothing wrong. Putting can get in your head for sure. It can be a problem. But if he just focuses on playing the game, he's such an even keel guy. You could see him come out and just do something crazy at the U.S. Open and just boat race it because he does have the putter on. Like, think about Lowry last Thursday at this event, the Memorial just passed. He made every birdie. It felt like he was 5-6 under just like that. Imagine Scotty does that at the U.S. Open where it's really tough, does that, gets out ahead and just doesn't look back and starts clicking with the putter and just keeps everything else the same. Man, that would be a serious win for him. And all the comparisons to the ball striking of Tiger Woods. What about when Tiger used to win these majors by X amount of strokes and people are just like, it's nuts. This guy's so good. It feels like that's the flip side of it all. So I think that's where, next week I'll look at that because the wire to wire, the first round leader, those type of bets or first round leader and winner, they all pay much better than what Scotty will pay to win. But it's definitely a scenario on the flip side of what I said, where he just doesn't mess with anything and comes out and just says, see you later to the crowd and just crushes.
Yeah. I mean, like if he had Denny's putting week with the tee to green that he had, he would have won by 30 strokes.
It was by a lot.
It would have been fucking incredible. He would have won by 30 strokes. I mean, Jesus, it's crazy. Now, when it comes to Rory and the wedge play, I mean, you've seen this from him. There's times where his wedges just go off. They're just not on. And then he usually finds it. It's not like his wedges suck all the time. You know what I'm saying? I think the biggest problem Rory has with his wedge game is if there's any little bit of wind at all. Because he hits it so high, higher than any other golfer on tour. But he probably hits a double height than some golfers hit their wedges that are on the tour. I mean, it's crazy. When you see the shot tracker, you see it just go straight up, and then you don't see anything coming down for 4 seconds, and then finally you see it coming down because it can't go that high. The shot chaser. So I think a lot of that has to do with if there's windy conditions. And he doesn't really do any change trajectories of his shots. Like a lot of the times when he hits, it's just full bore, just every time. And he still does that with his wedges. You don't see like the low trajectory, type wedge play that some guys have in our arsenal. You don't see it that often with him. I think he needs to start incorporating that type of shot into his game because you lose so much control when there's any little bit of wind. And, it was 15, 20 mile per hour winds on Sunday.
Yeah, it was windy.
Yeah. And I think that's a big problem when it comes to Rory. If it's a wedge fest and it's supposed to be windy, I think you worry. Now, this week, not that much wind until Sunday. I expect him. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. The other big story, of course, you want to go on about Rory?
Because we spent too much time on Scotty, but Rory, I think we're kind of combining the opens though. And I don't think people care because they can always skip ahead, but I do think it's funny that, like you said, the next time we'll see Scotty is that, and we got to talk about that. But with Rory, it's funny that you said it's on Sunday is when the wind pops up. So Rory's going to be there until Sunday. And then we got to fade his ass in showdown because it is interesting. It definitely was something. And by the way, I haven't seen Rory that pissed off in a long time, show that much emotion on the course. He was just fired up with this stuff. He was so frustrated and pissed off with it. He's Rory McIlroy. He's always the guy that can bounce back and get into it. We'll talk about it when we get into the tiers. But this week, He's going to be popular for good reason. Two-time, well, back-to-back right now, Canadian Open champions, even though 20 and 21, they didn't play because of COVID and all that, but still different courses, etc. This one's very similar to last year's, though, where he did just fine. But yeah, it's one of those things, Kenny. Rose, yeah, talk about it, man. I thought that's another thing to talk about for sure.
Oh, no, I was going to talk about Morikawa.
Okay.
That withdrawal was painful. He was 2 off the lead going into Sunday.
Serious. So, I mean, it's something he's injured. He was down 2 strokes.
Oh, he's definitely injured. Yeah, that's why I'm worried. Hopefully he's okay going in to the Open to the U.S. Open, because I mean that's a pretty big story. Falling out and withdrawing when you're 2 off the lead going into Sunday in a designated event. I mean, something must be fucked up. I heard he had a
Mayo
workout
said it today to me, and I thought he was right. I was like you, I was thinking like you, and like many others probably are, but back spasms, I'm sure you've had them. I've had them. Like they can go away in 3 or 4 days. He gets the best treatment in the world. It's just, what if it happens again at the major? That's going to be the scary part. But I think taking the risk on him, if you think he's playing good otherwise and want to play him, it's fine.
When I had back spasms, I mean, I had them, when I played football in high school, what would happen was it would happen, and then I would get treatment and I'll be better, and I'd play, a couple more weeks, and then all of a sudden it would just act up again. You just don't know when the fuck it's going to happen.
You don't know.
Yeah. So that's just, I mean, I would be fine like 2-3 days later. And then, I'd play a couple more games, and then all of a sudden it just act up again. You never really know with that. It's a little worrisome because he's so young. These young golfers having back problems could be an issue. With Zalatoris, Morikawa. I don't know why or how, what's the reasoning behind them. Maybe they're doing too much work in the gym. Maybe they're trying to swing too hard for their body type. I don't know, but it's definitely worrisome when guys in their mid to early 20s are having back issues playing golf. Because the thing about it is, so I have a bad sciatic nerve, and sometimes my back will give out. And I've talked to my doctor about this, like how to fix it. And, lately it's been fine. But he said the only way to truly fix it would be surgery. And that wouldn't even truly fix it. There's like the cure for back injuries are like far and few between. It's not ever a cure. It's like just to make it more palatable to your health and your pain threshold. It is all that happens when you have back surgery. It never really heals. So this is worrisome. It's worrisome for these guys. We'll see how it goes. Their careers are young. Maybe they can bounce back and figure out how to take better care of their bodies. But it's a worrisome thing when you see these younger golfers having these back problems. Rose Zhang, unbelievable. We're going to be talking about her for
a long
years
time
to come.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have to waste too much time, because I mean, if you look at her track record, she won like 13 events over the last like 17 or something like that. Like she broke all of Tiger's records, who was like actually broken by Patrick Rogers, who broke all of Tiger's records. She broke all of Patrick Rogers' records at Stanford for golf. So first win ever. We're gonna go see here. We got a guy coming in this week who's in a similar boat. I don't think he's as talented as Rose is, but Ludwig what's it?
The books, though, the books got worried off. That's what the joke. I threw it on Twitter, and people are like, they're not the same person. I'm like, get the joke. Like, the point is, she won, and I put hashtag blame Rose. She goes and wins on her pro debut. So all of us waiting on, like, I guess I think one of the sites out there had the number up as high as 170, 150 in that range. I got 120 before it crashed at another book, but other books, it came out at 55 and 45 and 60 and stuff. And that to me was just them saying, people are going to hit this because they just saw what Rose did. People wanted to bet him anyway. We've been waiting for him. 2-time Ben Hogan award winner. People know who this guy is. Not super sneaky. It is, I guess, to the casual or the general public, but for most of us in the space, we know what this guy is, and we're waiting on the numbers to drop. I was up at 7:00 this morning just to see what the numbers are as normal. Check his first, because I am kind of intrigued by it. And I was like, what the hell? This is the most disgusting number of all time. 50 at my normal book.
I got 75.
And then 75. People are texting me, you can get 120 over here. And apparently that already dropped from 150 or 170. So I took the 120 with a friend and we got it. But I don't even think he's winning. I just think that was kind of the intrigue was behind it, was let's hop on this guy. He's obviously very talented. We'll talk about him when we get there. But yeah, it's funny. She wins. It triggers that. She did not even make a birdie, I think, for forever, and still gets the job done. Like, she is just very, very good.
Yeah, she's talented. She's gonna be a name that you hear. It's funny, like she was so pissed off yesterday because I don't know why the LPGA had like the amateurs play at the same time. That just seemed weird. And for like, you get amateurs out there, you're gonna play 6-hour rounds, and she's out there just like looking fucking heated.
Still got
Yeah,
the job done.
like the whole round, Hey, but she got it done. Worked in the playoff. That little 5-wood she hit or a 7-wood she hit on the approach on that playoff hole was fucking sick. Like with all the pressure that she had, that was fucking sick. So good for her. All right, so let's move on to our listener league. You want to talk about the listener league for this week, Tambo?
Yeah, it's gonna be $12.50 again. This is the final spot. If we get it filled, we get $2,000 for the U.S. Open. So same as always, it's this week I believe it's $1,000 up top, $100 to 10th, $10 to last place. Around 15% get paid. It's really just the way I like it. I wish a lot more tournaments were like this. To be honest, it's almost the perfect setup. It's solid $5 3 max as always. And then if we fill this week up, go out on my Twitter, on the FG Degenerates Twitter, wherever, get in it. Share it around, get your 3 entries in. It'll be up to 2,000 entries for next week for the U.S. Open. Probably will drop on Sunday if you want to just check it out on Twitter. So we'll notify everybody once it comes out.
Make sure you guys get that filled. Get that shit done early so we can get to that 2,000 mark on Sunday or for next week. All right, so the winner this week was Bengals 9285. Looks like I don't know which the players are. It's either Carson Palmer and Ocho Cinco or somebody else. I don't know. But he is a Bengals fan. He won the league with 498.5 points. He had Victor Hovland, who was 13% owned. Hideki Matsuyama, who got up to -10 on Saturday, finished +1, or I think, or something like that. Even. So he lost 10 strokes in like the last 24 holes of the event. But he was about 19% owned, finished in 16th. Wyndham Clark, 7% owned, finished 12th. Siwoo Kim, nice, 22% owned. Solid work there, Degen Nation. He finished 4th, of course. Denny McCarthy, who finished 2nd, 9% owned, and Benny Ann, 13% owned. He finished in 24th. What'd you think of the lineup?
And speaking of Benny Ann, withdraw out of this event. He withdrew early at the U.S. Open qualifier. People thought it was early flight to Canada. It was not. He was apparently stretching and did something to himself, and so he had to WD from this event. So we'll keep that in mind as we're going down, because he was priced in at 8,800. So
talk to my whole cash lineup. I had to restart everything.
By the way, too, Bengals, he came first and second. He had Ricky Fowler and Suh with Clark and Ann swapped. So he kept the same 4 guys in second place, but overall the lineup looked solid. That was the thing. Funny enough, Kenny, we talked a couple times about it last week on the show about the previous year when Billy Ho had won. It was 5 8K guys and a higher end 7K guy that were in the winning lineup on DraftKings. Not, I don't know the optimal, but that was the winning lineup at least. This time yesterday, it was Hovland, 4 8K guys and a 7K guy. So again, at the Memorial, it ends up being that, even with Scheffler all the way at the top. That was the lineup that ended up winning. Again, it's all the setup of your roster construction, and I didn't see the final optimal yet, but the point being that was available there with some of these guys, and he got close to it. He got 3 of those 8K guys, Denny and Benny, to round it out, maybe because they rhymed, I don't know, but it's a perfect setup there. As far as the lineup goes, I thought it was good. 2 guys around 20, 2 guys at the 10 to 12 and 12.3 for both of them, and then 2 guys under 10%. It looks like a very good setup here. Great lineup overall. Got Bengals 9-2-8-5 in the 3-man. For this week, we'll get him in there, and then he also already hopped in the Tournament of Champions with us. I saw him join overnight, so shout out to him. Congrats on the nice lineups, first and second for, what was it, $1,400. So nice week for him.
Yeah, so speaking of Billy Ho, that was another story this week after his 84 or 82 on Thursday. Kudos to him for doing the press conference after playing like garbage golf. And man, he was just so emotional. He was just so down. Like the game is not there. And that was coming from like a 9-time winner, a guy who's, won 9 times, who has a FedEx Cup championship, who has played in President's Cups, who has, led halfway through US Open, has been a top 15, top 25 player in the world for a while. And then to see like the mental anguish that he was going through because of his poor play just shows how golf is such a fickle game where you could just be on top of the world and be the best player in the world 1 second, and then everything just falls apart. I mean, you're seeing it with Scotty and his putter. It's amazing what these guys have to go through on a day in and day out basis, and to try and keep their sanity. It's a tough game, and that was a pretty cool moment for, not cool, but pretty interesting moment seeing Billy do that. And I know he's not the biggest fan favorite, but I'm rooting for him.
He never
And
got the sympathy in the past. Yeah, to your point, he was never a fan favorite. So it was cool that the people came out for him. The crazy part about golf, though, is that you always have to get reminded. You talked about all his accolades. I mean, the reason he was in the public spotlight was because he was literally the defending champion. Just a year ago, you're shipping this tournament and crushing and shaking Jack's hand, and you're the man. And then since then, we had earlier stuff this season where he said he was working on stuff. He didn't know. He's like, I'm going to WD next week. I'm going to quit this one too and not even play next week. And then he played it anyway. And then we recently had the caddy change, going back to his caddy that was on the bag during the FedEx Cup run. He's clearly going through it. And then to see the emotions spill out of him, like you said there, that was definitely something. But it's the game, man. It's what you gotta do. It's a tough one. We watch it and see it every week. These guys grind. It's always tough. And that's why even like Denny, the lip quiver at the end, it's I'll be back. Like, not making fun of him. It's that tough, man. It's so hard. And he's right there. He's playing incredible. He needs one good shot off the tee on 18, and he's probably okay because how good he is with the putter. Just get it up there, get it tight, make the putt, and you win. No, it ain't that easy, man. It's always the pressure till the very end. He still walks away with $2 million, but it's a $1.4 million mistake, and vice versa flip for Hovland. Like I said, there's something about maybe it's the experience of winning, even though they weren't big name events and stuff. We've seen it with guys where they come out of their shell a little bit, but Victor was not phased at all. He literally hopped up off the thing. He wasn't even warming up. He just, let's see what happens. Watch it. All right, let's go to work.
I was screaming at the TV, get to the fucking range, Victor. What the fuck are you doing?
Get the kids on the range, like Grillo from the week before. You got to bring the kids out. That'll guarantee you get the bounces and everything. But no, it was an interesting week overall, man. A solid, fun one. This stretch is so good. Canadian Open we're about to hop into. You can hit the course preview, but after that, the U.S. Open, and then don't forget the Travelers designated event, elevated field, everything's there again. So we're getting a nice little run here leading up to the back half of the season. We got some more great events after that. So I'm excited, man. It's always fun.
All right. It sounds good. Let's get to this week. The PGA Tour heads north of the border for the RBC Canadian Open. This event has been around forever, like 100+ years. And they have used a number of courses over the years. This year, we're going to get the maiden voyage at Oakdale Country Club. Now, one thing we've routinely seen at this event, no matter the location, is a lot of scoring. Birdie Fest have been the norm at the Canadian Open, and I don't really expect that to change this week. In high-scoring events like this, I think it brings more golfers into play as potential winners and high-end finishers. Another thing to factor is that this was the week before the U.S. Open, so some golfers' motivation might wane a little bit, especially if they get off to a slow start. Now, there really is no way to gauge how motivated U.S. Open qualified golfers will be. So instead of looking for little hints and details for the guys up top who are all qualified, maybe, when you come to strategy for this week, I think you play whoever you like up top, but when it comes to the lower price golfers, maybe you have a little bit higher ownership on guys that are like hungry for a win that you really, really like in that 7K range, something like that, and maybe overexpose yourself there. My initial betting card has a ton of long shots, and I think going heavy on a few of your favorites in lower price ranges might be a good way to go this week. Weather, of course, could wreak havoc on the supposed easiness of the course, but as of now, it looks like it's going to be pretty pleasant. Light winds until Sunday, where we might see some rain and higher winds. With this forecast and the course's only other defense really being the length of the rough, I expect the winning score to be 20 under par, maybe even more. Now, Oakdale Country Club, 7,250 yard to 7,450 yard par 72. They're going to be able to move those tee boxes around. I think on the card it's 7,250, but I think it could play a couple of 100 yards longer because this is 3 courses 3 9s that they combine. So they should be able to maneuver stuff with tee boxes to give it a little bit more length if they want to do that. Now, the thing is, the way the holes are set up are a little bit different than normal tournaments. It's 12 par 4s, 3 par 3s, and 3 par 5s. Now, 2 of the par 5s should be reachable by almost all the golfers in the field, especially the par 5 18s, which is listed under 500 yards, but plays uphill. Again, we'll see where they put that tee box. The 590-yard par 5 8th hole might be a bit tougher to reach for some of the shorter hitters, but I would expect well more than half the field to go for that in 2 as well. The par 3s don't look too daunting, with 2 right around the 200-yard mark, and another that's like 180, but severely downhill. Like they might be playing a wedge onto that par 3. Now the par 4s have a fairly wide variance in distance. 5 of the par 4s play between 350 and 400 yards. 3 are between 400 and 450, and 4 are between 450 and 500. So looking at all these distances, I would key on like wedge game, like 75 to 125, and long iron play, 175 and above. Now, off the tee, golfers will see average size tree line fairways with a few fairway bunkers and water in play on about 2 or 3 holes. With so many shorter holes, I expect driver to be left in the bag on almost all the par 4s under 450 yards. This leaves golfers about 4 to 6 driver holes a day. Now, if golfers miss the fairway, they're going to have to deal with some very tall rough. Now, early reports have the rough around 4 to 5 inches tall. Now, the Memorial last week had 5 to 6 inch rough all week, but that was cut down to just a bit above 4 inches by the time the event started. Now, if they leave the rough at this height this week, I would expect less to driver on even more holes than I outlined earlier. If they cut it and it's manageable, I expect we'll see the high end of the driver number that I talked about earlier, maybe even a couple of more, maybe like 7 holes, 8 holes. Just depends how aggressive these golfers want to be off the tee. Now, even with all this off the tee talk, I do expect this to be a second shot course and maybe a putting contest. Approach shots will need to be hit into average size Bermuda, bent grass POA blended greens that are normally elevated and surrounded by thick, tall rough with very few runoff areas. There are many elevation changes, and many approach shots will be uphill, making judging distance a bit more difficult, especially from the rough. The course isn't bunker heavy, but there are a few around the greens. I haven't heard any mention of the stimp or firmness of the greens so far yet, but it hasn't rained in over 2 weeks, and there isn't any in the forecast until Sunday. So I would expect the greens to be firm, not crazy, as they'll probably water the greens prior to each round with a stimp meter rating of around, I don't know, somewhere between 11 and 12 and a half. It just depends on how they want to do it. I think what you need to look for this week is good wedge play, good long iron play, strong birdie or better percentage, par 4 scoring, and good bent putting. Tambo, what are you looking for in golfers this week?
All the same stuff, but you said, but I do want to talk about one key piece just up front, because you mentioned I actually was, doing the show this week a little bit early with Mayo. He's going away this week for a couple of days. And so he was already talking to Feinberg. Everybody knows Jeff Feinberg. He's a member there. He's out at the course and all that. And he said the rough was still up. Now he's doing the Preferred Lines podcast tonight with Joe, our guy at Tour Picks, Joe I. So he's going to bring some more insight to the table for the community. We'll all get in on that, listen to that show. But I do think it'll be interesting to hear, because the reason I say it, Kenny, there was mention of that rough staying up somewhat, probably not as high as what you're seeing right now. Like literally 2 days ago, it looked thickest thing you'll ever see, but he talked a little bit about maybe some bomb and gouge approach because of that effect. Like people will just go out there and do it. And that's the case, changes it up probably a little bit from where people were going. So I don't hate, even if you want to build in sets or do something like that, because we don't know. It's the first time hitting a course. You have 150 lineups and you want to do 50 like that, and 100 your standard or something. I wouldn't fault you for it to cover a couple angles. I think that's a good way to look at it. But yeah, the rough looks thick. It does look like it could easily turn into a putting contest. The wedge game looks like it's going to be needed no matter what. You talked about it with Rory. The weather looks good. Doesn't look like much wind at all, really. We'll see how it actually shapes up Wednesday evening if there is a potential edge wave. But I don't see anything there, or a wave edge, sorry, but I don't see anything there right now that I'm looking at that's crazy or stands out. And then, like you said, just from comparing it to some of the courses, I heard a few comparisons already, some to, I believe, Wells Fargo, talked about guys that had done well at Quail. I think it was Stephen Rawlings, probably in the tidbits this week on my Twitter. he was talking about the guys that have done well at Quail Hollow that did well last year and this year, how last year's could compare more to this year, same designer in some way, shape, or form. So little things like that you can look at, but again, the sample sizes are always so limited. So the bigger thing, Kenny, my question is going to be, and we're going to segue right into it with this top range, is the last year, all the cream rise to the top. This year, there's 10 of the world's top 30. It's definitely a weaker field, but there's still something to be said for the guys there. Another point that was brought up is that, Scheffler, JT, Finau is not the same last year as this year. Burns, Hatton, Fitzpatrick. Take that for what it's worth. You can also say maybe they weren't playing as good last year. Like Scheffler wasn't the same as what he was at the early part of the season or as what he is right now. And again, he's not here, but just to bring it up, things like that. So what's your thoughts on some of those things before we hop into these tiers?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think strategy wise for like for cash games, I really wasn't the biggest fan of the 6K range. So I was gonna go like 2 9K, 1 8K, and my 8K was gonna be Benny On, who I felt really confident about going into the week. Now with Benny out, there's really no one else in the 8K range that I really want. So I had to make a decision. I was either gonna go 3 up top and try and punt like I have been doing in the past, or try and do like an uber balanced. And just thinking about it and how much these top 10 golfers, in price, how good they are, compared how much better they are compared to the rest of the field, I decided to go with 3 guys up top and 1 punt. So that, that's basically how I'm going to go about this in cash, because when you have fields like this that are top heavy, and then once you get to like the 8K range, everything falls off a cliff. You see a lot lower 6 of 6 percentage. It's just hard to pick those guys that are 7K that are normally 6K, the guys that are 8K that are normally 7K. It's tough to be able to get 6 through in those type of situations. So I'm going for a little bit more upside when it comes down to it. And I've been varying my cash game technique on a week-to-week basis now. It used to be just sort of one level, one mind, one way to do it. And I think it worked for a long time. And that's why, it took me so long to try and make adjustments when it comes to a week-to-week basis, because from like 2016 to 2020, I was basically the cash game god. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just working all the time, and everything I did was just correct. And, I just had one mind frame of the way that I was going to go about building my cash lineups, and it worked great for 5 years. I don't know what changed. It could be from the top 65 in ties, or the fact that I got a new job, and for like a year and a half, I couldn't really focus as much as I wanted to on golf. Now my job is 8 and 9 to 5. I don't bring the work home like I was when I was a superintendent, where I'm stressing about what we got to do tomorrow. So being the director of estimating for the company that I'm with has made it a little bit more easier to refocus on what I need to do. But I think that's what I'm going to do for this week. So I'm going to change the way I wanted to go balanced, but I had to switch it, and I don't feel comfortable. I'm going top heavy with a punt for my cash game cornerstones, and a couple of guys in that mid to lower 7K range that I really, really do like. Any strategy for GPPs on your side, Tambo?
I think one of the things you said that's key, and then we can get into these tiers pretty quick, is just the 6K range sucks. So you're going to, take your stands there, but the bust rate and the 6 should be really low this week because the bust rate is very high. We looked at it today. Mayo and I were going through it. Whether you start with Rory and land in that low 7K to 7,500 range, or you do 3 9K guys or 2 9K guys and an 8K, you still land in the same spot. So no one knows which of those guys is going to blow up, but it's very likely some will. And when they do, that hurts everything. So there's ways you can look around it, but also got to keep an eye, Kenny. While we're live here, you talked about Benny Ann and the WD, but already 2 WDs since starting the show. Sam Ryder, who was dialed in on his approaches last week and then did not come through anywhere else. And a guy I like this week quite a bit, actually, Sam Stevens at 7,500, just WD as well. So a lot of guys are coming through. I didn't see yet, because trying to balance here, if it was from already qualifying for the US Open today or something like that, but there's definitely going to be some more WDs come through, I would expect. So keep your eye on that. Have it covered for you guys in our Discord at Ship It Nation. I'm sure you'll have it over at Gup's Corner, all over it. So keep an eye on the WDs as the week progresses.
Sounds good. Let's get to these tiers. Let's go ahead and start. I want to do a little different. Let's start with Fitzpatrick all the way to Rory, because those seem like the big four. That like, once you get past those four, there's a little bit of a talent drop off. So who are you going with from those four? It's been tough for me. I've been having a hard time.
Yeah, I think I'm just playing all of them. Like, again, it'll be how I varied out with the ownership. I will say this, it reminds me of last year. There's an argument to be made against it that the cream won't rise to the top or whatever reason, and there's guys in there. But what I mean by all of them is not just to not take a stand. It's I don't think you have to. These are, to me, the four guys that rate out incredibly well versus until you get around down to probably somewhere around like that Cam Young range. I think it's going to be very popular this week to have one of Connors, Rose, Fleetwood, some of those guys in that range. So for me, I'd rather take my stands up top than the guys in this next range in the 9K and just be low or off those guys and hop down. Like I like Rory. I like Hatton, Fitzpatrick. Rory's the hardest one, to be honest. Burns is a perfect tournament play. So really it's just how much Rory do you get? The other guys, it's easy to get around. Burns looks like he's going to be 12 to 15% range. Fitzpatrick looks like he's going to be 17 to 20. Like you can get those guys. It's Hatton who's going to be owned and Rory. The question is Rory kept in check enough where, in certain models or in certain stuff people are looking at, they want to be off, or if that Sunday scares them away or the week before a major, whatever it might be, enough to keep it where he's not 40 plus and he comes in at 28 to 35, then he's probably fine. It's when if he got to the 40 plus range, maybe in your single entries, higher stakes stuff, if you wanted to move off him because you expect him to get even higher owned, that's where I'd feel more comfortable with it. But yeah, probably a majority of these guys, Fitzpatrick seems to stand out from the starting point. Like if you could even start a lineup with Fitzpatrick and just fade the top three, I like that. But it's more so just saying I'm going to mix those guys, skip some of this 9K range and at least some of my lineups and hop down, because that's how you can get the unique builds. Did it today with Mayo where you could run Rory Burns builds that don't touch the $7K to $7,500 range because you use like a Kramer Hickok or someone at the bottom and pump yourself back up into that upper 7K range. That's a unique build while still having two of these guys up at the top. So it definitely could.
So if you had to rank those four, how would you rank them?
Right now, Fitzpatrick, Hatton, probably Burns, and then Rory. Just because Rory's the one that's the wild card to me. He probably looks the best on paper, but ownership plays a big factor here. And again, just some unknowns that go with it. But I would definitely go with Fitzpatrick number one as of right now.
Wow, I like Fitzy this week. I like Fitzy and Burns. I like Burns. Because it's an easier course. For me, it seems like he usually tends to play well on easier courses. Actually, if you look on Fantasy National, right now, he is third in strokes gained total, fourth in strokes gained tee to green in this field when you plug in the easy course filter. So I'm a fan. 6th and 16th in his last two starts. He's been looking good. I'm hoping for 12 to 15%. That would be great. And then maybe I go 40% with Burns this week. And then I think I'm going to play Fitzpatrick as well. I think you're going to get lower ownership, under like maybe 15% for Fitzy. He played really well last week. His iron game has slowly been improving ever since he's gotten back from his injury. And like I said, I do think this is a second shot course. And if you look, he's gained strokes with his approaches in 4 straight events. So I do like those two. If I had to rank these guys, I'd probably go Burns, Fitz, Hatton, and Rory again. And the thing is, it's possible that I do the same thing as you and play all 4. I might just play 3. We'll see. And since I'm not the biggest fan of the 6K range, maybe I skip on Rory and pray to God that his wedge fucks up again, because Rory can easily win this event, like no problem, like easy. I'm not worried about him from last week. I got no problem. He can crush people at this event. And so of course that would be the scary fade, but if he's 25 to 30%, it could be worth the risk. And it's definitely a fucking risk. Don't get me wrong.
One quick thing. I like the price on Fitz, but just to note on Hatton, again, the Burns decision is pretty easy just because it doesn't seem like he's going to have the ownership. So you can just play him easy courses. Glad you brought that up on Hatton. 4th at the Arnold Palmer, 2nd at the Players, 3rd at the Wells Fargo, 15th at the PGA Championship, and 12th at the Memorial. Those fields blow this field away in strength. And so again, it's not like I'm getting an ownership discount. People know this. And he's coming in at 20 to 23 as of right now, could get even higher. But man, you can get different in so many places. If you play him without Rory, if you play him with Rory, do whatever you want. You can make it all work this week. Trust me. But I'm just saying the fact that he's played so good, it's like the opposite, Kenny, of the Adam Scott effect. What I always say with him, when Adam Scott's in weak fields, I like playing him. That's kind of the same thing I want to do with Hatton here. Not really the opposite effect, the same, I'm saying, but usually the price on Adam Scott is down. Hatton, we're paying up. But man, this is a spot where the field is just much weaker. If he can just do what he's been doing, he should really come through here.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's go to this 9K range. Like I said, 3 of my cash game cornerstones are going to be just right here in this. And I'm going with the Euros. I know Jeff talked about earlier, I think last week, how, it seems like this could be well suited for the European golfers. And so I'm going with 3 of them. I'm going with Rose, Fleetwood, and Lowry. Just go ahead, start my cash game lineups with those. Those are my first 3 cash game cornerstones. All excellent ball strikers. Tee to green, they've been great. Iron play, they've been exceptionally strong. Shane's been really striking the ball really well the last couple of events, and then of course Rose and Fleetwood, that's what they're known for, their ball striking. Really love these guys. And I think Rose has a really good chance of winning, one of the best bent grass putters out there. When it comes to Tommy Fleetwood, he's been incredibly consistent, making a lot of cuts. If it turns into like a crazy super shootout, maybe you worry a little bit, but then you look and he's, 8th in this field and birdies are better gained. So he can go out there and pump those birdies if he needs to. So those 3 guys, I'm going to go ahead and start my cash game lineup with those 3 Europeans. Now, the guy that interests me in GPP here is Cam Young. If you look at what Cam Young has played during his struggle, he's been playing like the most difficult courses on tour, basically. Like if you look at the courses that he's been played for the last like 2 months, let me go ahead and put this down for you. The Memorial, hard course. PGA Championship, hard course. Wells Fargo, hard course. RBC Heritage, not easy. Masters, hard course. Players, hard course. Palmer, Arnold Bay Hill, hard course. Genesis, hard course. This is going to be the easiest course he has seen in 2 months. Maybe even 3 months. Yeah, in over 2 months. This is the easiest course he will have seen. Maybe he can use that to his advantage. And I think ownership can't possibly be that high for him. Like, what do you have early on, Tambo, for him?
It's actually higher than you think. Yeah, early on.
Really?
Just because the price and the setup, his odds in the market, all of that. Again, now we have you talked about your cash games and having to evolve. Got to evolve with the market this way too. The stat sites and things that are out there. Through all that you just mentioned, while there was 2 missed cuts recently and a 59th and a 51st, his off the tee numbers, extremely good. Gained on approach in everything we can see, except Wells Fargo, he lost a bunch. The Masters we don't see, but he finished 7th. I'm sure it was okay. Gained it all there and is losing massive with the putter. So surprisingly, I'm seeing like 17, somewhere in that 15 to 18 range already.
Well,
now,
if he's 15 to 18, maybe I might go down to Sahith.
Yeah, you could go. That's where it depends on what you think people do. But to me, both those guys look fine. I was going to say that. This is the thing. If I'm doing what I'm doing up top, Connors, Rose, Fleetwood, Lowry, there's just no way to get a bunch of these guys, even though to me, they look solid on paper. And the decision is like people are deciding Rose or Fleetwood. And maybe the answer is both, but maybe the answer is neither. Maybe the answer is Cam Young, Thigala, Keith Mitchell, or something in the 8,900 and go up to the top guys and have that as your pool up there. But for me, right now, I'm seeing 20%-ish on Connors, Rose, Fleetwood, Lowry, somewhere in that 17 to 20% range. So again, it's minuscule. It's the normal ownership getting spread out, but there is something to be said for some of these guys down there in the 8K range. Looks like just no ownership at all. And I think there's definitely some potential talent in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Moronk. I like the giraffe neck motherfucker. I'm a fan of him. The guy's been playing exceptionally well across the pond. I think he had a decent 15th place finish at Bay Hill or something when he was over here. So I sort of like him. When it comes down to it, it comes down there. Michael Kim. But the thing is, I've already seen a lot of steam for Michael Kim. If he's going to be like 15, 18, 20% owned, that could be a fade for me, because if you look at what it comes down to, Michael is on easier courses, he tends to struggle a little bit more. On the tougher tracks, he's been playing pretty well. But like if you look at his
What if he goes John Deere Classic on your ass? He didn't struggle there when it was easy.
That's true. That's
The time
true.
he
That's
won,
true.
so
He did. Yeah. I'm just saying recently
yeah.
from what we've seen. I guess in the last 50 easy, 25 rounds that he's played on easy courses, it's been a bit of a struggle for him. But, he's a different golfer right now as well. The guy is playing some of the best golf of his career. At this moment in time, and at that price, it seems very, very tempting. But it could be an easy fade for me if it garners a lot of ownership. And make sure you check all your ownership sites, wherever sites you use to look at it, because it's going to be pretty important this week. Yeah, but you're right. Like other than that, maybe and Ludwig Aberg, I want to test him out because the guy is supposed to be the shit. So we'll see. I mean, the number one amateur player in the world, just got his pro card. I think I can get on him. Who do you like in this range? You said you like a lot of guys.
I just think I don't like a lot. I'm just saying if I go my route I'm talking about right now, which is pretty sure I will. It's like Keith Mitchell looks good to me. I think Moronk, who you already mentioned, looks good. Aberg, it sounds like people are going to talk about it and not be about it. I actually prefer him more in DraftKings. Here's the thing: the 50-1 numbers and stuff out there, I wouldn't touch. I got 120. I'm happy with it. But the point is that if at 8,300 people aren't going to do it, that's just the average price. He can be your fourth guy in, he can be your third guy in. There's lots of ways that you can go about it where he just needs to find his way through. He actually had a pretty good result. I can't remember which tournament it was just at, but he played one of the designated events and came like 24. Yeah, the API, 24th at the API. So I don't have any problem going to a guy like him. I mentioned Keith Mitchell, Moronk. Who's the other guy? Højgaard is another guy, 8,400. Bramlett played pretty good last week. I'm really fine with all those guys. So I think if you can mix and match these guys in, or start with your Fitzpatrick, or start with your Cam Young and do something like last week where you build that sort of balanced version, it takes you off of a similar build that everybody else is on. So I definitely have no problem with that here in this 8K range.
Sounds good. Let's go down to the 7K range. Tim, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, Eric Cole, right off the top. Again, don't know what his ownership's actually going to come in at, but when you look at the stats and what he's been doing, and again, I'm looking at the stats I put for the course. Tee to green, approach, opportunities gained, DK scoring in general, like being able to score up with if it gets to 20 under or something like that. 6th in the last 36 rounds on par 4s, solid with the putter, pretty much everything that goes with his game. And at 7,900, that at least stands out some. So I don't mind him. One bounce back candidate, Kenny, Alex Smalley, really bad first round last week, but other than that was good. Again, now we go to a bit easier course. His numbers are fair across the board, but at the price point, I got no problem going back to it. You go down the board. Mayo is selling me on Aaron Rye after I'm usually on him, but I'm kind of liking a couple other guys here that'll be better for tournament plays. But if you look at Harry Hall, we just saw him in the mix. I don't know how many go back there. One thing I will say, what I said off the top, Kenny, is that this range seems like a lot of guys 5 to 10% or less, like in that range or less, because people are playing the guys at the bottom, whether you do Rory or Fleetwood Rose or whatever the most common builds are up top. And it's a course we've never seen. So I think that the idea of just playing the guys that have been playing well and then looking at roster construction and getting off some of the ownership is a way to go about it here. So Harry Hall, Taylor Pendrith is not going to pop in your numbers here. I've got him way down the board. But if you're looking for a spot, he's a Canadian guy, find his way through. And then on top of the fact of when we've seen him have success before this downward spiral, it was with the putter. It was with a little bit of a longer game off the tee, all the stuff that may end up coming in handy here this week. So I think for tournaments, Pendrith, Hall, guys like that. And then Thorbjornsen is a risk you'd have to take on, but he's another guy that we've seen a couple times come out and show up, and everyone's talking about Aberg. Everyone's talking about some of the other stuff. Maybe a guy like him comes through and gets the job done here too. I wanted to play Stevens, but he's out. I think Lee Hodges will be extremely popular. Who do you like in this upper 7K range?
I really like Alex Smalley. I'm on board with you there. The thing about him is, again, when it comes to easier courses, the guy balls out. He's top 10 on a model. Once you click the easy course filter, like top 10 in approach, top 10 in tee to green, top 15 in birdies or better gained, top 10 in proximity from 175 to 200, top 10 in from 350 to 400 par 4 efficiency, good with his wedges, especially his shorter wedges. So I like Alex Smalley a lot. I think I'm going to give Aaron Wise a chance. I know he's been struggling. I know he had that mental issue where he had to take a little bit of a break, but I mean, his game, it hasn't really come back yet, but I'm just, hoping for low ownership type of miracle, not miracle, but the talent is there. Again, another guy, he's 6th in my model when it comes into for easier courses. So I think I'm going to give him a chance of possibly single-digit ownership this week. He seems like a really good leverage pay. I mean, he can
Could be
blow
pretty
up.
low owned. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
seeing 5% or less.
yeah,
So.
he could blow up, miss the cut like he has for the last 3 out of his last 4 events. He could easily do that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and take the risk with the ownership and the skill level that he has and the price. I mean, that's a pretty good price for him. Now, other guys in this range, I'm not really the biggest fan of anyone else until we get to like Vincent Norman, who's been playing pretty good golf, making a lot of cuts here recently. So I could play him. Now, my favorite play in the 7K range is going to be Luke List. I know that's always a risk. you know that the man could blow up and fuck up at any time, but I really, really like him this week. I haven't officially put him in my cash lineup yet. He's in there. I don't know if I'm going to keep him because I might want to save him for my highest owned in GPPs. That's how much that I like Luke List this week. His ball striking is always elite. I think he was top 5 in birdies last week at the Memorial Championship. Really good finish, top 20 finish there. I think he could really do well at this course, get a shit ton of birdies. I'm a huge Luke List fan this week, and it's possible he's my highest owned or he's in my cash lineup. It's going to be one of those two. If I keep going down into this lower 7K range, David Lipsky, again, another great showing last week. Really bouncing back after just being sort of average to below average for a little bit, probably since the Sony. But his iron game is his strength. He's really good. Top 25 in birdie or better. Really good with his short wedges. Like he's 10th from 75 to 100 and 17th from 100 to 125 in the last 50 rounds. This could be a wedge fest. I really like Lipsky down here. Mark Hubbard. He's the guy that I would replace List with in cash. I think that might be the smarter play again, because he's been making a lot of cuts. He's been playing good golf. The stats are all there. Once again, Aaron Badley quietly having a decent season. I mean, when he plays. Now just looking. Hold on, let me bring him up. Go ahead and go to this lower 7K range before I talk about Aaron Badley.
Yeah, some of the guys you mentioned already, but just again, stick with the theme of these guys that are coming across and already playing decent. Like again, I got some of the same guys as you, but Hubbard was one you said. I'm with you on. Lipsky, if you want to carry it over. Luke List, I do want to bring up. This was something I said the same today because he watched him last week and the stats were good. And then Mayo brought it up too. And you go back and look, and even when you flip it over to the easy courses, he plays much better. I don't know if this will give you any pause, but he plays much better on longer, harder courses. And that's kind of the opposite of this. And even if you do flip over to something like easy courses, Kenny, and look at it, he does stand out for overall tee to green, but he drops huge. Like now all of a sudden in the last 36, he's bottom 100 in some of these stats like birdies are better, DK scoring, proximity from 100 to 125. Just an interesting note. I do still like Vincent R. Norman. He's a guy I always like in tournaments. He can make eagles. There's 3 par 5s here. I'm sure there'll be some eagles out there throughout the week. So looking at him. And then speaking of him, Doug Gim. Rhyme it out, but Doug Gim, Akshay, some guys down low that I think could actually do enough and score. Carson Young probably will be a little bit popular here. I'll see what I'm seeing first off early on right now. Looks around. Not seeing it fully. Looks like 5 to 8. So we'll see what he actually comes in at. He might come in even higher. But yeah, Akshay and then Hubbard. And who's the other guy I just said? Doug Gim. Yeah, so those are sort of the main guys for me as of right now.
Yeah, Akshay makes a lot of sense. Again, another guy tends to play better on easier courses. The skill levels there. I'll definitely be playing him. Carson Young is going to be popular. You can see if you're looking for someone like low price or low owned CT Pan. He hasn't been playing that great, but he sort of had a little peak here recently. I forget at which event. And he's sort of been good at these shorter type of courses. So yeah, I can go with him as like a sub 5%. GPP play that can win you one, if he goes off. So I can go there. Moving down to what about your boy Aaron Cockrell?
Yeah, he's looking pretty good too. That's another guy. Again, you got to look at
mostly on the Euro Tour he's been playing, right?
You won't, you're just taking a risk because when you go to these stat models, things like that, you pull it, you won't see it. But what you're not really taking a risk in the sense of how good he's been playing. If you go pull up his OWGR and look at the Euro events and things like that, he's just been crushing. He's Canadian. Maybe that helps him some. I don't know. But at 7K, he seems like a fine guy to take a punt on. Two I missed, so I want to say really quickly because I know people like Ben Martin this week and he'll pop in the models. But if you flip, like you said, to the easy courses and some of that stuff, Ben Griffin actually really takes off. And even this one stands out to me as a nice tournament play, Kenny. S.H. Kim. He actually really pops off in it. When you flip over to easier courses, he's got 29 rounds in play over the last 36. He's top 20 in quite a few categories that are important, like the tee to green in general, opportunities gained, birdies are better, DK scoring, par 4 scoring, solid top 40-ish in the 100 to 125. And he played good to round out the weekend. This past weekend. S.H. Kim. S.H. Kim at 7,300. So I think he's interesting as well. And then I was just seeing if there was one more at the bottom. CT Pan, we talked a little bit about today too. See where his game's at. He could be interesting down at the bottom. And then Ches Reavie was the other one. Where's Ches at? 7,100. Ches Reavie's been sort of coming into his own here. I'm not sure how well he'll do or how much I'll get of him, but he's definitely someone that stood out as well.
Who's your favorite Canadian this week? I like Cockrell. Who's your favorite Canadian this week?
It's probably Svensson, but man, I don't know. It's Svensson or Cockrell, I think, is the two I was looking at. I looked at it this morning. It was like 14-1. Might be Hughes, to be honest, too. That's another guy here who we didn't talk a lot about, but at 7,400, if he's not going to get much steam, he's another guy that I think could be pretty interesting here at that price point. He's not the best on the approach stuff, but if you go to birdies are better, DK scoring, par 4 scoring, the putter, we know what he can find. All those types of stats, he does pop. So I might add him into the mix as well. He'd be another guy, those three.
All right, let's go to the 6K range. My final cash game cornerstone is going to be Kramer Hickok. The guy's made a lot of cuts. I think like 8 of his last 10 cuts he has made on tour. Of course, everyone remembers that marathon playoff he had when he lost to Harris English a couple of years ago. But when it comes down to it, he's gained almost 7.5 strokes with his approaches in his last 3 rounds. Just makes a ton of cuts. So I think I'm just going to go. I was really, like I said earlier, I had Benny on and I was going to go a little bit more balanced, but Benny went out and then really screwed me. So I sort of had to go find a punt play down here. And this was the guy I came up with, but I read Martin's Sundog Monkeys article after I put him in my lineup and he's on him. So at least somebody else I know who is sharp as hell is on him. So that sort of stamped it in for me for my cash game cornerstones. So my 4 cash game cornerstones this week are going to be Justin Rose at 9,700. Tommy Fleetwood at 9,600, Shane Lowry at 9,400, Kramer Hickok at 6,700. This leaves you 14,600 to fill out the rest of your lineup. And so, you get a couple of those guys in that low 7K, maybe like a Hubbard and a Baddeley. And I was talking about Baddeley. I missed it. He's made 12 of 15 cuts this year. Just sort of under the radar when it comes to Aaron Baddeley. Like you don't expect him to be, an 80% cut maker for a year, or a 75% cut maker for a year. But that's where he is. And I think the biggest thing is his improvement with his approach game. It's not like elite, but, it's gotten a lot better. I think he's 34th in this field in strokes gained approach in the last 50 rounds. It's not bad for a golfer that's 7,200. So I'm a fan of him, and he could be in my cash lineup. We'll see. But other guys down in this 6K range, Grayson Murray's been, he should have won back-to-back events in the Korn Ferry Tour. Like anyone who win, with that talent that can almost win back-to-back. I mean, that seems pretty good to me at $6,900 on a tour that's, it's not, they're not playing scrubs down there. That's the future of golf usually on the Korn Ferry Tour. Other guys that I'm looking at, Ben Silverman, another guy who's just been crushing it on the Korn Ferry Tour. We've been playing really, really good golf. Is he Canadian?
He is.
He is. There you go. That's another Canadian. That's another guy I like down here. Some flyers. Hank Lebioda. So Hank, he had that run last year where he was like the DFS darling and his game really went to hell. I don't even think he retained his card. He might have. I don't even know. But just a couple weeks ago, he did qualify for the U.S. Open in some type of qualifier. He didn't do it in the longest day. He did it at some other tournament, like some other qualifier, like a couple weeks ago. So I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, but he should have that nice feeling that he made. They qualified for the U.S. Open. He's made like a cut or two here recently, if I'm not mistaken. Give me 1 second and let me double check. But like you would think, with the way he is with his irons, and his best putting surface is bent. He made the cut at Morales a few months ago. He hasn't really been playing that often, at least on the PGA Tour. But just a flyer, 2% guy who you could have 8% of, be 4 times the field, and not kill you if he misses the cut. You know what I'm saying? When it goes for it, that's another guy. There was another guy. If you follow the Fantasy Grind on Twitter, Jeff, I forget his last name. Always a sharp dude. He had this a tweet earlier today, and let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, so Miles Creighton, he won on the Latino Tour last week. He leads that tour's order of merit. Stu McDonald, third in the last Latino Tour start. Some guys, all Canadians, that you might want to take a peek at. So who do you like in the 6K range?
And not those guys. Love Jeff Ulrich. I feature him almost every week. That's some good stats, but definitely not guys.
He's the one that got me on Silverman. I like that.
Silverman is the one he had in there that I like. Definitely. That one makes sense. He literally won a Korn Ferry Tour event recently. Like, you can talk about it. You mentioned, though, how Grayson's been doing the same thing. But for me, a couple other guys, Davis Thompson, same price at 6,900. He pops on the easier courses. He pops for me. Was doing a few things last week and then didn't really come through. But just to say, in a much stronger field, harder course, he was still doing his thing. Tyler Duncan, always play him at easy courses. Grayson Sig, very similar. I like him. You mentioned Hickok. He stands out. I think, again, he'll get a little bit of ownership for 6K range, but nothing to worry about. So by all means, head down there. And then the other guy I was going to bring up was Jake Knapp. This is another guy in the last just 2.5 months, 5th, 7th, 9th, 41st, 27th. They're all Korn Ferry Tour events, but on this past Sunday, popped like a 64 or a 65 up on top of those previous results. So he's been playing some pretty good golf coming in. Stats look good. Jake Knapp at 6,500. I think he'll be a guy you could go to here as well.
All right, that sounds good. Anything else?
Oh man, I think that's it for the 6K range is not strong this week. We established that. It's again, you can take your shots there, but I think you're better off to find some different roster construction up above. The show that Mayo and I did this week, I think it'll still come out on Wednesday, but it went through some pretty good stuff, even after seeing the numbers a little bit better, that shows how you can sort of balance it across. And so I think that's going to be a show to check out just to see what that looks like.
All right, so let's go to bets for this week. My first bet, and the only golfer I think that I have under 75-1 this week, is going to be Justin Rose at 20-1. After that, I got Aberg at 75-1. And then I threw a top 5 on him at plus 1,000 because it was on a book where it didn't have top 5s. I also have Eric Cole 75-1, Michael Kim 75-1, Luke List 90-1. These are all 8 places each way. David Lipsky 100-1, Aaron Cockrell 160-1, Carson Young 160-1, Hank the Tank Lebioda 350-1, Michael Gliglick, just a Canadian. I'm throwing it out there. He's spiked like twice in his life, 700-1, 8 spots each way. Just throwing it out there. Sort of a shitty bet. Maybe the Canadian shit will rub him the right way, and we can get something lucky with him. Who do you like? Who's your betting card?
Somebody 20-1 or there is winning this event. It's just the way it's going to go. But everyone's betting the bombs for good reason, because if they don't, it's a putting contest, all that stuff. But I bet the only one I bet up there was Rose. And I don't even love him in DFS if he's going to be like 20+% ownership, because there's just other guys that I think are fine around him. But I was chatting with Mayo. We were debating Rose versus Fleetwood. He said it best. Fleetwood still hasn't won. Rose has won this season and has won a lot more in the past. So it's kind of like you just got to trust that when you're making the bet on the same number. I think some places had him at 22, got him at 20. I bet Cole, same as you, 80 though, at 8 places. I got Aberg at 120, the FOMO. And then I bet Reeve at 175 with 8 places. I am going to couple that one with a top 20 that's pretty heavy, because the only reason is I want to get on Reeve early. Baroff and I, resident fill-in, Mr. Ryan Baroff for our show. Shout out to him. We've been talking about this guy for a little while, and he just keeps doing a little something. And it's like, it's all adding up to probably like a 20-1 win at some stupid little tournament, depending on what he does. I think he might be qualified for the Open, so I'm not sure if he's going to defend at the Barracuda, but you can get the Barracuda number at like 66 if you think he goes back there to probably, I don't know if to avoid it or not though, but just in general, getting on him early, thinking that he's going to pop up and get something soon. So 175 with 8 places, don't see it happening. Maybe I get lucky for the place, but betting him at the top 20, a little bit heavier just because I like him coming into this week.
All right, one and done, Rose.
Yeah, any of those, the Rose, Fleetwood, Lowry types seem good. Cam Young, if you want to take a flyer, like you said, again, I don't know how many people will go to him here. That to me would make some sense. And then I know people are saying like, save Rory, but man, for what? He wins this event. If you think he's going to do it, he doesn't win. You what? I'm saving him for a major for what? He hasn't won a major in almost 10 years. So
exactly.
Like, get this guy, use him. If you got him, I seen him at like 40% in the Mayo race for the Cup. So I would have no problem if you use him. I don't think it's wasting him. I think you're using him and hoping that it goes well. And if it does, you collect a paycheck. You get the win. That's what matters.
All right. Well, I think that's it. You can find me on Twitter at KendoVT. You can find my article at gupscorner.com. Use promo code Kenny. Save yourself 30% on a membership to Gups Corner. You'll get my course preview there, my stats to look for, my final betting card if there's any changes, my fade of the week, my favorite GPP plays, trends, all that good shit. And then plus you get the greens, you get all the tools that come with Gups Corner. They're unbelievable. You need to use it. Come join Gups Corner. Come join the fam.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at Toetag and Tambo. Got the tidbits coming out on Wednesday as usual. I'm actually going to be on the Inside Golf podcast with Andy Lack this week.
Nice.
Excited to get back together with him. He helped cover a couple weeks ago on the show, or a few weeks back on this one. It was a great little back and forth. So excited to chat with him for this event. And he knows courses and designers and all that stuff. So that's going to be a good one. And of course, shipitnation.com. Got to remind everyone quickly because it's the last week for the introductory pricing, $59 a month. It's going to end. People go back and forth on Twitter about the value. We just posted up on the site. You can just check it out. It's free to go to the site, shipitnation.com. The drop-down menus for NFL, NBA, NHL, all the sports yet to come on what's going to be on the site. There's a lot of content coming on top of all the baseball stuff right now with MLB, on top of all the golf stuff. Showdown this past week, we didn't talk about it earlier, but it was an absolute print fest. I got 26th in the main on round 2, 13th in round 3, so 2 very close calls there, and then 40th on Sunday. So we're on the cusp, but a lot of members won some big money, and one guy turned $40 into $4,000 playing that $40 single entry using the core report over there and Hoops player pool. So check us out. Lots of sports going on for that introductory pricing. It ends next Monday, and so I would check it out now, shipitnation.com. That's all I got for this week, Kenny.
All right, that sounds good. Oh, Canada, my home and native land. Let's win some motherfucking money, Degeneration.